AITA for tearing a family apart over money? My girlfriend's father inherited a family business, originally started by his great-grandfather in the 1950s, that had been passed around through different family members. Eventually, her dad bought out the rest of the family and became the sole owner. The last buyout was in the 1980s when he paid his brother about $20,000 for his share. The business itself didn't generate much income, so her dad switched careers and started managing a grocery store while renting out the commercial property instead. When he passed away, he left the property to his wife, my girlfriend's mom, who's been receiving rent, about $2,800 a month, which barely covers property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Most years, she clears maybe $5,000. She now wants to sell the property for $350,000 to fund travel and move into a retirement community. She's mostly living off Social Security and that limited rental income. Since I work in land and property, my girlfriend asked for my opinion. I told her $350,000 seemed far too low for a commercial lot sitting on an acre in the middle of town. She said they were going off the property tax assessment. That's how the family had always handled property valuations for internal buyouts. I explained that tax assessments and true market value aren't the same thing, so I offered to send in an appraiser. The appraisal came back at $1.2 million, which stunned them. They still didn't fully believe it until the property was listed and they started getting strong offers. After some back and forth, they reached a deal at nearly $1.5 million. Closing is next week. That's when things blew up. Word spread among extended family, people who had sold their shares decades ago, and they were furious. They believed they were cheated in past buyouts because they based their sales on the tax assessment instead of market value. Now they're threatening legal action and demanding a piece of the sale. My girlfriend's mom is heartbroken. She wanted to use the money to travel and visit those very family members, but now they're threatening to sue. My girlfriend is emotionally exhausted and told me that while I was just trying to help, maybe everything would have been better if I'd never suggested the appraisal. She said it tore her family apart. So, AITA for being the one who brought the appraisal into this and triggering the family meltdown. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding dress. Even though I could afford it, I recently got a pretty big promotion at work. I've always been smart with my money. No debt, solid savings, and just generally financially stable. My family knows this. My older sister is getting married next year. She's always been the princess of the family. My parents dote on her constantly. Meanwhile, I've been more like the background character. It's been that way forever, and I've just accepted it at this point. She found a wedding dress she absolutely loves, but it's way over the budget she originally set. Instead of looking for something more affordable, my mom apparently suggested that I could cover the difference since I'm doing so well now. The kicker? No one even asked me. They just assumed I'd say yes. So when I said no, all hell broke loose. My sister accused me of being jealous because she's getting married before me. She called me selfish for not wanting to help family. Now my mom is guilt-tripping me with the classic line, "We're supposed to support each other." I told them flat out, if she wants that expensive dress, she can save up or find a cheaper option. I'm not a personal piggy bank just because I'm doing okay financially. Apparently that makes me the villain now. So, AITA for refusing to let my son's fiancé come to our baby shower. After almost a decade of living together, my wife and I finally tied the knot, not because of some grand romantic gesture, but because of tragedy. My brother passed away unexpectedly, and the experience changed my perspective. An ICU nurse made it clear that my then-girlfriend wasn't considered immediate family and almost kept her from visiting. That moment pushed us to get married quietly at the courthouse, a week after my brother's death. We both have children from previous marriages. My son is engaged to Angie. The kids on all sides get along great. Angie and I have always been civil, but things between her and my wife have been strained. Angie seems to have this quiet competition with my wife. Anytime my wife receives a compliment, a gift, or any kind of attention, Angie finds a way to insert herself. She's weirdly obsessed with the fact that there's only a 10-year age gap between her and my wife, and has even asked strangers if they think it's odd that she and her mother-in-law are so close in age. Things got even more tense after we got married. A month after Angie and my son got engaged, Angie felt like we stole her thunder. Then, about a year into our marriage, we found out we were expecting. Given my wife's age, we didn't think pregnancy was likely, so we hadn't told anyone we stopped using birth control. But it happened, and we're thrilled. Angie, on the other hand, has been less than supportive. She's made snide comments about how some women can't get pregnant while others get pregnant by accident. She also criticized us for not having a nursery ready by 23 weeks, when in reality, we've intentionally waited until we're further along to avoid potential heartache. She's made countless passive-aggressive remarks throughout the pregnancy, and honestly, my wife and I have had enough. So when it came time to plan our baby shower, I told my son that Angie wasn't invited. He could still come, and we'd love to have him there, but if that meant he couldn't come, we'd understand. He asked me to reconsider, just to avoid drama, but I stood firm. So, AITA for setting that boundary and not allowing Angie at the baby shower? Boss told me to use my personal judgment, so I judged that I should go home. I work somewhere that thrives on vague expectations. You know the type, where staying late is appreciated, but never explicitly required. They love to keep things in the gray zone so they can guilt you later without ever actually asking for something. So one night we were super behind. 2 coworkers had already called out and things were chaotic. My boss swings by my desk and says, "You're free to use your personal judgment on whether to stay." Not, "We need you," not, "Can you stay late to help?" Just that. So, I did exactly what he said. At 5 eyes on the dot, I shut down my computer, packed up, said, "Have a good night," and walked out. Next morning, he comes over looking baffled and says, "Wait, you left?" I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, I used my personal judgment. It told me to go home." And now, surprise, there's a brand new email in everyone's inbox. Mandatory overtime this week. Guess next time they'll be a little more direct.
AITA for refusing to babysit on my first Father's Day? This Sunday is Father's Day. My first Father's Day, actually. I've been looking forward to spending it with my girlfriend and our 7-month-old baby, just the 3 of us, like a little family day together. That's all I wanted. Nothing extravagant. Just some quality time with the people who made me a dad. But then her brother asked if we could babysit his kid that day because he and his girlfriend wanted to go out. When my girlfriend brought it up, I politely said no. I explained that I really just wanted to have this one day with our baby and her, especially since it's my first Father's Day ever. She didn't take it well. She got salty and now she's been acting passive-aggressive about it. For some context, her brother and I don't get along. At all. He doesn't like me, and honestly, I feel the same way. We don't talk unless absolutely necessary, and even then, barely. He only ever contacts her when he needs a favor, and this is just another example of that. His kid is a good kid, and we've babysat for him before, many times, but still, not on Father's Day. What's bothering me is that on her first Mother's Day, it was just the three of us. No interruptions, no favors, no side obligations, and I was happy to make that day special for her. So I can't understand why she can't return that same gesture now. It's just one day. So, AITA for saying no to babysitting and wanting my own Father's Day to be about my own family?
He left my house in ruins for a vacation, so I destroyed the gift he was polishing for himself. A few years back, my wife and I finally scraped together enough savings to renovate the kitchen and bathroom in our first home. It was a big deal. We had been putting money aside for months. I wanted to go with a professional contractor, someone who would treat the job like business. But my wife was adamant that we hire her brother-in-law's company. He's family, and he'll take care of us, she said. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Big mistake. Right away, things seemed to move fast. Old appliances gone, cabinets ripped out, bathroom gutted. We were basically squatting in our own place. Then, just a few days in, the guy vanishes. No updates, no calls, no texts. Total radio silence. We later find out he jetted off on a 2-week vacation without mentioning a thing. So now we're living in a construction zone with no kitchen or bathroom. Ended up couch surfing with friends, hopping around for nearly 2 weeks. It was a nightmare. When he finally reappeared, work resumed, but half-heartedly. He'd swing by for an hour here, maybe 2 there, clearly juggling other projects. What was supposed to be a 2 to 3 week job dragged into its 5th week with barely any progress. Our home still looked like it had been hit by a wrecking ball. And then came the part where I decided to get petty. In the midst of this mess, we still had an old IKEA butcher's block in the kitchen. It wasn't anything glamorous, just solid. Wood I'd used for years. He'd asked if he could take it once the new kitchen was in. I said sure, assuming we'd be done soon and I'd be glad to have it gone. Well, I came home one day and found the block had been lovingly restored. Sanded, oiled, polished. It looked brand new. Clearly he'd been putting real time and care into fixing it up. Meanwhile, my kitchen still looked like a disaster zone and the bathroom wasn't even close to finished. I lost it. Dragged that beautiful butcher's block out back, took a hammer to it and shattered it into pieces. Dumped every last bit in the trash. The next day, he showed up, noticed it was gone. He looked confused and sort of sad. I didn't explain, and he didn't ask. It took him another 4 weeks to finish the job. I learned a valuable lesson. Never hire family for projects like this, and I'm glad he never got to enjoy that butcher's block. We haven't spoken of it since.
AITA for telling my husband's Italian friend to cook for herself, and that I wouldn't eat her food. My husband's friend from Bellagio, Italy, came to stay with us in Melbourne for a week, and it's been exhausting. I genuinely tried to be a good host. I wanted to show her around and introduce her to the amazing variety of food we have here. But nothing seemed to be good enough for her. We took her to some of our favorite restaurants. Sushi, Thai, Chinese, you name it. She flat out refused to try anything that wasn't Italian. So we gave in and went out for Italian food 3 days in a row. Still, she nitpicked everything. The pasta texture, the cheese, even the bread. It's just not like in Italy, she kept saying. She complained about the wine being flavorless. And when I ordered a cappuccino at 4 p.m., she gave me a lecture about how Italians don't drink cappuccino after noon. I just told her, well, I drink what I want, when I want. That didn't go over well either. Things came to a head when we went grocery shopping. We were in the pasta aisle, and she took it upon herself to give me a public pronunciation lesson on each type of pasta, correcting me loudly in the middle of coals. At that point, I was just trying to keep my cool. That night, I cooked at home, Asian food because I'm Asian, and I love cooking dishes full of flavor and spice. As soon as she walked in, she wrinkled her nose and said, my house smelled bad because of fish sauce. She refused to eat my food and asked my husband to take her out for lasagna again. When she came back, she told me I should really learn to cook Italian food properly because fusion food is bad for my husband and online recipes are stupid for straying from the roots. I lost it. I told her she was being arrogant and obnoxious, that she wasn't in Italy anymore and should be grateful for the food available here. If she couldn't tolerate anything non-Italian, she could shop, cook, and eat alone. I added that unfortunately, the ingredients won't be as good as in Italy, but hey, welcome to travel. She cried and decided to cut her visit short. Now, my husband says she's just old-fashioned and barely ever traveled. This was only her second trip outside Italy in 60 years, and the first one was over 25 years ago. He suggested I apologize just to smooth things over, but honestly, I refuse. If someone can't step outside their own culture at all, especially when they're in someone else's home, I don't see why I should cater to that. So, AITA.
AITA for walking out of a sham wedding and leaving my bride at the altar? I come from a deeply conservative country in South Asia, one of those places where tradition is king and deviation is met with shame. I moved to the US for graduate school, and that's where I met the love of my life, my husband. Coming out to my parents wasn't easy. They didn't embrace it, but they reluctantly tolerated it. That was the best I could hope for. A few months ago, my father reached out with a request. My grandfather's health was declining, and his final wish apparently was to see me married before he passed. Of course, no one had told him I was gay. He was too old to handle the truth, they said. I initially pushed back, but my husband, of all people, encouraged me to go along with it. It's just a performance, he said. You don't have to mean it, and we know what's real. Plus, there was the not-so-small matter of the inheritance that was supposed to come my way, so I flew home, prepared to go through the motions. The ceremonies began, and I just assumed the bride was in on the act, that this was an agreed-upon charade to keep up appearances. But on the wedding day, everything changed. I saw actual legal registry papers being brought out to be signed. Right, there in front of my grandfather. That's when it hit me. My parents hadn't told anyone the truth. Not the bride, not her family. To them, this wasn't just a show, it was real. Panic set in immediately. I wasn't just playing along anymore. I was being asked to commit fraud. Worse, I was going to blindside a woman who believed this was her wedding day. I stood up, told the entire room that I was gay and already married, and I left. First flight out. When I got home, my mom called in tears. Apparently, the bride's family had been humiliated. They lashed out at my grandfather, and his health got even worse afterward. Now my mother says I'm selfish and cruel for ruining everything, but I can't help thinking, wouldn't it have been far worse to go through with the wedding, sign those papers, and trap an innocent woman in this lie? So, was I the asshole?
I don't feel fear anymore, and it's turned me into someone I barely recognize. Back in 2009, I suffered a traumatic brain injury. Technically, I died. Obviously, I was resuscitated, but the damage was done. Permanent brain trauma that changed everything about who I was. The days that followed were surreal. I was in the hospital for 3 days and no one expected me to make it, but I did. Somehow. What didn't survive was my memory. I have permanent amnesia. Every personal memory I had before the injury, gone. I couldn't remember my mother's face. I didn't even recognize my own reflection. Everything before 2009 is patchy at best, like a half-wiped hard drive. The hardest part wasn't just the memory loss. It was realizing what I had become. It took 5 years of struggling to understand that the emotional part of my brain, specifically my amygdala, had been permanently damaged. I had lost the ability to feel fear, just gone, and I can't describe how inhuman that feels. People think fear is a weakness. It's not. It's a boundary, a governor on your actions. Without it, there's less holding you back from anything, and that's not as freeing as it might sound. I couldn't connect emotionally with my wife anymore, and eventually she became my ex-wife. I couldn't fix what was missing. What's left behind are emotions that feel amplified. I feel love deeply, overwhelmingly so, but anger hits just as hard, and I fear what would happen if I ever let hate take root. I don't think I'd be able to let it go. Anger is already difficult enough. When it comes, it's like flipping a switch. I hear blood rushing in my ears. My vision narrows. It's like my whole body is bracing to explode, so I fight it. I grip desks until my knuckles go white. I clench my fists until they ache. I stay silent and still until the rage settles into something manageable. I've learned to mask it, to push it down, to keep that volatile side of me hidden. No one knows what's going on behind the mask. I don't want them to. I don't want them to be afraid of me, but I worry what would happen if they saw what I've become, and I worry even more about what might happen if I ever stop seeing it too.
Manager banned phones at work, then got mad when I followed the rule. A new policy rolled out at work. No personal phones during work hours. They had to be on silent, out of sight, and absolutely not in use. Fine by me. I turned mine off and locked it in my locker every shift. No exceptions. This went on without issue until a few days later, when my manager pulled me aside, clearly irritated, and asked why I hadn't answered her call. She said she'd needed to urgently check something with me. I just reminded her I was following the new policy. My phone had been off and stashed, like we were all told to do. She didn't love that answer. Said I should have used judgment and answered if it was her calling. But I wasn't about to risk getting written up for breaking a rule she had just finished lecturing everyone about. And here's the kicker, after that, all talk of the no phones policy suddenly vanished. No more reminders, no more enforcement. I'm guessing I wasn't the only one who let a few of her calls ring into the void that week. AITA for taking the business class seat on an international flight. While my wife stayed in economy, my wife and I recently flew internationally to visit her family. We both travel a lot for work, so we've racked up a decent amount of airline, status, and miles. When we initially booked the trip, we chose economy seats. It was the most budget-friendly option at the time. A couple of weeks before the flight, the airline emailed both of us saying we were eligible to upgrade using our miles. I brought it up with my wife and asked if it was okay for me to go ahead and upgrade. She said yes, go for it. Since our frequent flyer accounts are separate, we each had to handle our own upgrades. I even offered to log into her account and process the upgrade for her when I did mine, but she told me not to worry. She'd take care of hers. In the days leading up to the flight, I reminded her a few times to do it, but she never got around to it. On the day of travel, when we arrived at the airport, I asked again and she just kind of brushed it off. I told her again that I could swap seats with her if she wanted. She said no. She didn't seem bothered and we went to our respective check-in lines, business class for me, economy for her. It wasn't until we were boarding that she suddenly seemed surprised. She asked me why I didn't downgrade my ticket to sit with her, and I was caught off guard. I told her I genuinely didn't know she wanted that. She didn't say much, just turned around and went to her seat, clearly annoyed. After we landed, she was short with me and didn't want to talk. Throughout the whole trip, she'd make these little passive-aggressive remarks about how luxurious my flight must have been or how cramped the back of the plane was. I tried to bring it up and clear the air, but she shut it down. We sat together on the return flight, and she didn't mention it. But now that we're home, the comments have started up again. Things like, hope your seat had enough legroom, mine sure didn't, or next time, maybe I'll just send you up front while I hang with the luggage. I've talked to some friends about it. A few say I did nothing wrong. I gave her a chance to upgrade, offered to help, and even offered her my seat. Others say I should have just given her the business class seat regardless. So now I'm wondering, was I the jerk for not giving it up?
AITA for refusing to let my sister borrow my designer dress for my ex-fiance's wedding. I have a younger sister, Mia, and our relationship has always been complicated. She's often been jealous or competitive with me over the years. Last year, my fiancé Ben dumped me abruptly and very publicly and is now engaged to what used to be one of my close friends, Zoe. Their wedding is next month, and as you can imagine, the whole situation has been incredibly painful for me. Recently, I treated myself to a gorgeous, expensive designer dress for a formal charity event I have coming up. It was a splurge, but after everything I've been through, I felt like I deserved something special. Well, yesterday Mia came over, saw the dress, and immediately asked if she could borrow it to wear to Ben and Zoe's wedding. She said it was perfect and that she needed to look amazing, and since I wasn't using it that day, I should just let her have it for the weekend. I told her absolutely not. It's for my own event, and even more importantly, it would feel incredibly disrespectful and hurtful for her to wear it to that wedding. She got furious, called me selfish, and went crying to our parents saying I was being petty and a bad sister. Now my parents think I should just let her borrow it to keep the peace, but I feel strongly that this is about boundaries and basic empathy. So, AITA for not letting her wear it.
AITA for refusing to punish my daughter for kicking her cousin after he hit her. My 6-year-old daughter and I were at my nephew's 4th birthday party over the weekend, hosted at my sister's house. It was your usual big family gathering, plenty of food, chaos, and kids running wild in the backyard while the adults caught up. At one point, I heard yelling and crying coming from outside. I looked over and saw my daughter standing next to one of her cousins, who was sitting on the ground, holding his stomach. His mom rushed over and immediately started scolding my daughter, demanding to know why she had kicked him. My daughter looked upset but composed, and she explained that her cousin had punched her in the arm because she didn't want to give him a toy. She said she told him to stop and tried to walk away, but when he hit her again, she kicked him in the stomach. His mom was livid and insisted I punish my daughter and make her apologize. I told her I'd speak to my daughter in private, but that I wasn't going to discipline her for defending herself. I explained to my daughter that kicking should always be a last resort, and that if possible, it's better to go get an adult. But I also made sure she knew that if someone keeps hitting her and won't stop, she's allowed to protect herself. Now, some of my relatives are saying I handled the situation poorly and that I'm encouraging violence, but I don't see it that way. I don't want my daughter to be aggressive, but I absolutely want her to understand that she doesn't have to just stand there and take it when someone's hurting her. So AITA for not punishing her, AITA for refusing to replace my nephew's leather jacket. After my dog had an accident on it, we have 3 dogs, including one we recently adopted after his owner passed away. He's gentle but sensitive and prefers quiet, so when we have guests, he usually retreats upstairs to our bedroom. He also has a sensitive stomach and can't tolerate anything but his usual dry food. Anything else causes stomach upset, and because he has long fur, it's not a minor cleanup. This weekend we hosted family, and everyone brought food for a buffet. My 3 brothers, their wives, and a bunch of their older kids came over. We've had issues in the past with guests feeding the dogs despite being told not to, so I loudly warned everyone as they arrived. Don't feed Pickles any treats or human food, or you'll be the one upstairs shampooing the poop out of his fur. My sister-in-law Tracy laughed and made a joke about me being too graphic, but I stood my ground and reminded everyone that Pickles is more sensitive than the other dogs. Later, my husband found a sausage roll upstairs. My nephew Dave admitted he'd tried to make friends with Pickles by giving him food. We were annoyed, but everyone else acted like it wasn't a big deal. That's when I realized everyone had dumped their coats in our bedroom like they always do. I hadn't thought to tell them otherwise. When I checked on Pickles, I saw he'd had a small accident, likely from the sausage roll, and some of it had gotten on Dave's leather jacket. Pickles had never had an indoor accident before, and clearly didn't want to come downstairs with a crowd around. I got him into the shower to clean him up while my husband came to help. People came upstairs to see what was going on, and Dave absolutely lost it when he saw his jacket, yelling, red-faced, accusing me of having the dog poop on it intentionally to make a point. We cleaned the jacket with antibacterial wipes, and it looked fine. No visible marks or smell, but of course it would need a proper cleaning. The party ended abruptly, and Dave and Tracy stayed behind to yell until my brother got them to leave, saying we'd deal with it later. I thought the whole thing would blow over, but it didn't. Now Dave and Tracy are texting nonstop, demanding $150 for a new jacket. I keep saying no. It was his fault, and I was the one cleaning up the mess. At first my husband agreed, but now he's wavering, saying we should have moved the coats ourselves since we knew someone would probably ignore us. He says I'm being technically right and missing the bigger picture. Dave's just a teen, and this isn't worth the fight. And maybe he's right. I mean, if the dog had chewed the coat, I'd replace it immediately without question. That makes me wonder if I'm being unreasonable here. I offered to cover cleaning costs, but they won't accept that. So, AITA,